What is going on, y'all? Welcome back to another video of Native Outdoors. If you guys read the title, you are correct. We are doing a complete breakdown of how to hunt in Florida. This is a video that I have been meaning to put out for a while now, as it has been highly requested by the viewers in the comment section. Questions upon questions of hunting in Florida, regulations and all that stuff. And in this video, I want to try to get into it as well as I can and comprehensively as I can, but also as quickly as I can to give you guys the foundation you need to figure out how to hunt in Florida, where to find your regulations, how to get into the quota system. All of these things we are going to cover today. And the way that I'm going to do this is going to be in two different parts. The first one being license, permits, and quotas. I'm going to explain all of that to you. And the second portion of this video, we're going to get into where to hunt, how to find hunting land, how to find public hunting land, where can I go hunt, what is up with these different places, WMAs, WEAs, PUAs, what does any of that mean? We're going to get into it in this video. So if you have any questions about that, questions about regulations, questions about hog hunting, deer hunting, public land hunting in Florida, stick around to the end because I'm going to be answering a lot of those questions for you guys here today. So right off the bat, do I need a hunting license to hunt in the state of Florida? The answer to that, yes. You absolutely do need a hunting license to hunt in the state of Florida. A lot of times I get comments from viewers asking me if they need a hunting license to hunt in certain places, if they need it to hunt on private land. It doesn't matter if you're hunting public or private, you need to have a hunting license to hunt in the state of Florida, whether that be deer, squirrels, any game. People think that just because squirrels are, I don't know, just a smaller game, it's still native to the state of Florida. You need a hunting license in order to be able to pursue that game. Now, the only exception to that is if you are hunting hogs in the state of Florida. A lot of my comments are, do I need a hunting license in order to hunt hogs? And the answer to that would be no. And I think that's really the only exception to the rule. You do not need a hunting license to hunt hogs in the state of Florida, whether you go on private land, whether you go to an outfitter, whether you go on public land, you do not need a hunting license to hunt hogs. You guys can do your own research, but it's very easy to find the answer to that is that you don't need a hunting license to hunt hogs. Be very careful. If you plan to pursue hogs on public land, you do need what's called a WMA permit, a wildlife management area permit. When you go to public land, you need to be sure that you have this. You can get it online on the FWC website, which I will link right here. And you can buy yourself the permit. I believe it's about $26 or so after taxes a year, and that covers you for an entire year of you entering and leaving the WMA. Whether you are going bird watching, hunting, or just driving around, you need to make sure that you have this permit. If you don't want to buy the year permit and you just want to visit public land one time, I believe most public lands have a way that you can just pay a $5 fee up in the entrance, and that basically gives you a pass for the day to use that area. So it's basically like a daily use permit. But you guys need to be sure that if you're going hunting, and since we're speaking, this video is a hunting oriented video, if you want to pursue hogs on public land, make sure you have your wildlife management area permit. That is the only thing that legally you need to have in order to go out there and do it. Now, the biggest part of this section of this video is the quota system. What is the quota system? How do we use the quota system? How to apply for points to get into these hunts? So basically what the quota system is, or the hunting quota system, is a system that the state has, just like many states that have their own systems. And what you do is you apply to hunt in certain pieces of public land, whether that be a WMA, a WEA, a public use area, or whatever it is. You go into the FWC website and you apply to be able to hunt in these places. And it's a random draw. You're going to be put in with everybody else in the state of Florida who is applying to be drawn as well. And the system is, there's an algorithm. I don't really understand how it works, but it chooses based on the hunting carrying capacity of a piece of public land that some FWC biologists deem for specific areas. They're going to decide how many permits they're going to distribute to hunt in specific areas. Now, why is this important to me as a hunter? Because there's a lot of places in Florida that you are not allowed to hunt in whether that be deer or whether that be turkey. You're only allowed to go into those places if you have a quota, if you received a quota, if you won by the random lottery draw of the quota application period. So you guys need to make sure that you're not just going into any piece of public land that you found on Google and going in there trying to kill a buck or kill a doe or hunt turkey, because you might actually be not going in the correct way, the legal way. And if you get stopped by an officer, they can give you a ticket for being in there without a quota permit. So we're gonna dive into how exactly we can get a permit, how exactly we can register for that, and how we can apply to these different places and be put in. And so the following years we can build preference points, which are just points that you receive for applying in the quota system. And when you don't draw, they give you a permit, so that the following year when you go to apply again, you have a what's called a preference point, which is basically like if you think of a raffle where you're putting your little ticket in the raffle, each preference point is like an extra ticket, right? So if you've been applying for 5 years and you have not drawn, then on your 5th year, or on your 6th year when you apply, you should have 5 preference points. So that's like you applying 5 times plus the 1 where you're applying for that year. So you have a much higher chance, a much higher odd of being drawn for the specific hunt that you're applying for. But let's go ahead and head into the computer, and I will speak to you guys and show you on the computer how you can apply for these permits, where you need to go, and what the system looks like when you do that. Alrighty guys, so the first thing that you're going to want to do to fill out your quotas is head over to the FWC website, which is license.gooutdoorsflorida.com. And you're gonna type that in and it's going to pull up something like this. You're going to click log in, fill this information out right here. If you already have an account, then you probably already know what this website looks like. If you don't, go ahead and fill out this information. Either way, hit continue. The system's going to prompt you and tell you that you do not have an account, and it's going to ask you to create one. But I'm going to go ahead and log in now. Now, once you're logged in, it's going to look something like this. Obviously, as you guys can see, I am not Maria Cardoso. That is actually my sister. I am using her account for this video just because I already did my quota applications and she has not. So this will be a nice clean slate for me to show you guys exactly what it'll look like for yourself. I am gonna blur out some of her personal info, but essentially once you're at this page right here, you're gonna see a bunch of stuff here. You can purchase different licenses. I'm not gonna get into any of that. I'm simply going to explain the quota application process, and that is going to be right here. You're gonna click right where it says apply for limited entry quota / permits. And it's going to pull up this screen right here, which will show you all the different applications, and it will give you an application deadline. This is the date by which you have to submit the application in order for it to, for your choices to be counted. So we're just gonna go ahead and go into, for example, archery. So you want to hunt deer, you want to hunt archery. You're gonna click next. This is gonna give you a couple of different options here. Apply as an individual, create a group, join a group, or apply for points only. I will explain this a little bit. When you apply as an individual, that's pretty much what I'm going to do now. And all that simply means is I am applying for myself, by myself, without the aid of anybody else. When you create a group, really, I would have to explain to you what a group is. A group is you and maybe a couple of buddies that want to get a hunt together. So what the system is going to do is going to use, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but the way it was explained to me is it'll use the person with the least amount of preference points towards a hunt, and it will put everyone in the group together so that if one person draws, the entire group draws. So if you got 3 or 4 hunting buddies and you want to hunt together, that's something that you can do. I don't know if it helps your chances or not. I would assume it does not, but I don't know. So there's those options. You can either create a group, meaning you started the group, and it'll give you a group code, which you can give to your buddies. And then when they come in, what they would do is they would click join a group, or if you received a group code, then you would come in and click and put in, when you join a group, the group code, and that is how you do that.
And then apply for points only is if you know for certain that you do not, for example, let's just say you can't afford, or you can't right now buy a bow for the coming season. You know you're not going to bow hunt, but maybe in a later date in the future you do want to archery hunt, then maybe it's a good idea for you to just apply for points. Simply what this means is you will get 1 preference point towards next season's application period. If you do this for 2 years in a row, you'll have two points for the next season, and then 3 and 4 and 5, and every year that you apply, you get a point for applying under points only. They did this new this year just so that people are not applying for a hunt that somebody else would go on, knowing they wouldn't go on it, and take up a possible slot. Now you can just go ahead and apply for points. But we're just going to go ahead and apply as an individual. And now it's going to pull up a screen like this, which is going to give us 5 different choices. And these choices, if you look down at the drop-down menu, are all the different WMAs which are allowed to hunt deer during archery season. So this is every single WMA that requires a quota to hunt deer during archery season for this coming season. So what you would do here, and I'm not going to select anyone in specific, I'm going to go randomly. I would go down and I would start selecting all the different places that I want to hunt. Now, it's key, guys, that when you do this, you be very careful about your selections, because that is where you're going to hunt. So if you get chosen for one of these hunts, first of all, you won't receive a preference point if you get selected. And yes, if you get selected, you will not receive a preference point. If you have preference points already from prior seasons of applying, they will use your preference points to go towards your selection. So make sure that the places you put in here, you're confident that you'll hunt them if you do get selected. The way this works is it's weighted by your 1st to your 5th. So your first choice being the one that they place the most weight on when they go to draw. And what happens is, let's say someone has 5 preference points. They've been applying for 5 years, they haven't drawn, and this year they put in the same place as you for their first application. What the system's going to do is it's going to give a higher weight to the people with higher preference points. So it's going to go to the list for how many applicable permits you can get for this WMA. It just happens to be Dunn's Creek. Let's say it's 75 permits. Then it's going to go through the list. If there's 10 people, each have 5 preference points, then very likely those guys are with the highest preference points are going to draw. All 5 of those guys are going to draw if it's their first selection. And then it's just going to go down the list of who has lower preference points, and eventually down to the people that don't have any. And at that point, it really is, to the purest form, a random draw. But that's pretty much what you're doing to apply. And as you can see right there, it gives you all your choices. It outlines it all for you, and you would just hit submit and apply for another, or finish and check out if you don't want to apply for anything else. If you do want to apply for something else, you'd hit this and you would go in. Well, here my sister has to add in a management area permit. You do need to have that in order to apply for a hunting license. Well, sorry, for a quota, because obviously you're going to be in a management area hunting and you need to have a management area permit. But that's basically what you would do. And that would add it to your cart and you'd go and check out. But it is free to apply for archery, for muzzleloader, for general gun right here. And a few of these, you got different, like wildlife refuges. You have the sandbar deer hunt. This has a $5 application fee to it. It's for hunting sandbar deer up in St. Vincent Island. So some of these do have a cost, others do not. But the main ones, which are archery, general gun, muzzleloader, those will not have a cost. Same thing with wild hog, and a few of them. You guys can just play around here. You can look into these places and see if you would want to hunt there or not, and make your selections.
All right, guys, so part 2 of this video is, where do I hunt? Where can I hunt? Where can I go hunt? What is this? You've heard me talking now about WMAs, WEAs, PUAs, STAs, there's reserves, there's refuges, all of these weird names and acronyms. What do they actually stand for? What do they mean? And how do they differ? So right off the bat, the most common one that you're going to hear is going to be a WMA. This stands for Wildlife Management Area. This is basically just a piece of public land that falls under FWC's umbrella. They are managing this public land, and how are they managing it? Through hunters, through people that go out to harvest game. Like I mentioned earlier, the biologists do a survey count of the game in these pieces of public land, and they establish how many deer can be hunted, how many turkeys can be hunted, how many squirrels, and that's how they establish these bag limits. So a WMA is simply a piece of public land that we have the privilege to go and hunt. But you also have the privilege to go out there and hike. You can camp in some of these places. You can just go out and spend some time in nature. Some of them allow you to go and do horseback riding. So it's just a piece of public land that is designated to be managed for wildlife. We also hear of other places referred to as WEAs, Wildlife and Enhancement Areas. So a wildlife and enhancement area is simply a WMA with a stronger focus on enhancement to wildlife. Depending on if the FWC decided that there are certain areas in the state that, because of stuff that happened in the past, whether that be ranching or whether that be expansion into civilization, but for one reason or another, certain areas suffered habitat loss stronger than others, they might designate an area a wildlife and enhancement area. We still have a privilege to be able to go out there and hunt. We still have the opportunity to be able to use it as a piece of public land, but it is managed a little bit differently, and many times they're managed along with certain water districts. So there are certain laws that apply differently to WEAs versus WMAs, but for the most part, they are managed very, very similarly. Thirdly, we have what's called a PUA, or a public use area. A PUA is usually part of a much larger WMA system. So you might have a WMA system that's very large, and there's sections of it that do not have access to the public because FWC deemed it more critical, where they do not want people going in there. But then there will be a PUA within the WMA system that you are allowed to use for hunting, for any activities, camping, outdoor things that you want to do with your family. You can do that as well. And same thing, they each have their own separate set of rules. Next, we have an STA, or a stormwater treatment area. So these areas are very peculiar. These areas are not part of the public land. They're actually part of the water management districts. The use for them is in the name. They're stormwater treatment areas. So these places are reservoirs. These places are flooded fields, flooded cow pastures that are used to manage water in Florida. Obviously, Florida and water is a big part of our state. So the way we manage our water matters, and the water districts, in partnership as well with FWC, have allowed us the privilege and the opportunity to be able to go out and use the STAs for hunting opportunities like duck hunting, gator hunting, fishing. So we can use them in many different ways, but again, managed very differently. Lastly, we will find reserves and refuges in the state of Florida. Reserves and refuges are actually managed by the federal government. This is the National Park Service that manages the reserves and the refuges in collaboration with the FWC. But they have their own different set of rules and regulations. A lot of times, if you break a rule or regulation in a reserve or in a refuge, that is a federal level crime. That's not just on the state level. So you guys have to be very careful with that, and you have to know the laws and know the regulations, the limits of what you can do inside of a refuge or a reservation. A lot of these places for many times of the year are closed to hunting, and even if they do allow hunting, it is in a very restricted and limited matter. You have to follow to the T what the rules and regulations are for these preserves, for these refuges, because like it says in the names, these are refuges. These are places that are so important. These places of habitats are so important that the federal government deems them a refuge, deems them necessary, meaning there's nothing that can ever be developed, that can ever be done on these places without substantial loss to some greater part of the environment. So now, having identified all these different places and different acronyms for places that we can hunt and public areas that we have access to, The question is, how do we find these public areas? Well, the FWC provides us a great resource called a WMA Finder, a Wildlife Management Area Finder. And what this is basically exactly like what it says. You can type in your zip code into this system that they built, and what it will do is it will allow you to program a distance from within your zip code, and it'll give you, I believe, up to 100 miles from where you are, different public lands that have access to whatever it is you're looking for, whether that be deer hunting, whether that be hog hunting, whether that be turkey hunting, quail, duck hunting, you name it. The FWC has created a system that allows us to find these places based on the dates, based on if they need a quota or not. It really allows you to fine tune what you're looking for. So let's say you want to go hog hunting and you don't want a quota, meaning you let's say you missed the quota application period, but you still want to go hog hunting or deer hunting. You can put in your zip code, do a 100-mile search within you, and find, and you can check off the area that doesn't require a quota permit in order to be able to hunt in that WMA, and you can go there. You can look up the regulations for that specific WMA that you found. And that goes for anything that you want to hunt. Let's say that you want to turkey hunt spring turkey season usually starts right around March time. So you would simply go into the system and you would say, okay, I want to hunt between March 1st and April 30th. So what you're going to do is you're going to go in there, you're going to input your dates, you're going to select that you want to hunt turkey, and you want to select no quota, right? It's going to pull up any area within 100 miles of your zip code that is available for you to hunt to hunt turkey within those dates without a quota and do what you're looking to do. So it's actually a great tool. You guys should definitely check it out to find WMAs, WEAs, PUAs, and use that to your advantage. That being said, guys, this is a crucial part of the video. I need to speak to you guys about WMA brochures. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. If there's anything that you're going to take away from this video, please let it be to look up the WMA specific brochure for the area, the public area that you're going to be hunting, because the WMA brochure is the Bible of public land hunting. If you are hunting a piece of public land, let's just say the Ocala National Forest, you need to go into Google and type in Ocala National Forest WMA brochure. This will pull up an FWC link with a brochure. It'll have a map and a PDF. It'll probably be about 8 to 11 to 15 pages long, with every single rule and regulation that governs that specific WMA. Let's say you want to hunt big cypress down in Miami-Dade County and Broward County. You need to look up big cypress WMA brochure. Now pay attention to this, guys. Be sure what unit you want to hunt. There are WMAs like these, Ocala National Forest, big cypress. They're so large and so vast that they have different units. Each unit will have their own WMA brochure. Make sure that you know exactly where you're hunting, which WMA brochure you need to be looking at. It will show you a map where the designated entrances and exits are. In Florida, you're not allowed to just walk in off the side of the road into any piece of public land because you can hop the fence. You're not allowed to do that. You have to drive your vehicle in through a designated entrance that will be outlined in the WMA brochure. WMA brochures, they also outline the specific hunt dates and regulations for the piece of public land that you want to hunt. What does this mean? It means that you're not allowed to just go hunt hogs year-round on public land because hogs are categorized as invasives or non-natives. Yes, hogs are allowed to be hunted year-round in the state of Florida on private land, not public land. Public land has specific dates which are outlined in the WMA brochures where you are allowed to be in there hunting hogs or deer or turkey. You have to abide by the dates on the WMA brochure. I cannot stress this enough, guys. Like I said, if you're going to hunt a piece of public land, go on Google and look up what exactly the WMA brochure for that piece of public land, and read the regulations. When are the dates that you can hunt in their archery? When are the days that you can hunt with a muzzleloader? When can you hunt general gun? When is small game season? When can you hunt hogs? It will outline everything perfectly how you need it. Because guess what? If you get stopped on a piece of public land and it's, I don't know, right now, June, everything's closed, and you say, oh, I'm hunting hogs because they're invasive or they're non-native to Florida, the game warden's gonna look at you and say, where did you read that on the WMA brochure? When you say, what's a WMA brochure? He doesn't need anything else to give you a ticket. So make sure that you know what that rule is, what that regulation is specified on the WMA brochure. They are updated year after year. The regulations change. Just because you read something on a brochure 3 years ago doesn't mean it's the same now. They're changing, they're getting updated year after year. Certain areas of WMAs get designated for different things. Some areas get designated as archery only areas, meaning only archery equipment is able to be used in those areas no matter the season. So guys, just be sure that you are familiarized with these brochures and you're paying attention to where you are and what you're doing. Now, it is worthy of noting that these brochures, the laws in them are very different than the private land laws. Just because you're able to do one thing on private land doesn't mean you're able to do it on public land, because the brochure specifies otherwise. So in other words, if you're hunting on a piece of public land and you know for certain that there is a law like deer season begins based off the state in one date to another date, doesn't mean that you're just allowed to go in there at any time. You need to pay attention to that brochure and see, okay, deer season starts, but in this WMA, the archery dates are only from this day of the week to this day of the week. There are certain WMAs that you're only allowed to hunt turkey on Saturdays, Sundays, and Wednesdays. For some reason, they're closed all the other days of the week. But if you were to look at the Florida rule, it just says that it's open from this date to that date. It doesn't specify days of the week. You need to pay attention to that, and the area to find those rules is in the WMA brochure. Now moving on to private land. Private land is a little bit different because private land is governed under the laws of what's called a DMU, a Deer Management Unit. In other words, just a hunting zone. The state of Florida is broken up into several different zones. You can look them up on Google. They look something like this. And basically what it does is it specifies different zones, A, B, C, D, in Florida, which have different regulations, different season dates, different bag limits, different sizes of what kind of animals you harvest, of how you harvest them, what time. All of these things are specified. So these are the state rules. This is when the state hunting seasons begin. So if you're on private land, for say, you would go based off of your deer management unit. If I am in Volusia County or if I am in Columbia County, I have to pay attention to which DMU, which deer management unit my private land, my address falls on that I plan to be hunting, and I need to make sure that I look up the state regulation for that specific DMU. The dates, the size, the harvest, the limit, all of that is going to be outlined on the DMU. For the most part, bag limits and regulations are the same between public land and private land. If a deer needs to have at least a 10-inch main beam or 3 points on one side in order to be illegal to take deer on public land, for the most part, that is also true on private land. Just because it's private land doesn't mean you can just shoot a button buck. You still have to abide by certain rules. Now, there is an exception to that. A lot of times, for example, turkey. Don't quote me on this either. Do your own research. But I know that in a lot of public lands, you are only allowed to harvest one bird per day per hunter. But your annual bag limit of turkey in the state of Florida is 2, meaning in the entirety of turkey season, you are only able to harvest 2 birds. But if you're on public land, you can only harvest 1 bird at a time per day. In other words, if 2 birds come in at the same time, you can't just crack a shot at both of them and say, well, I got tagged out in one day. You cannot do that. You can only kill 1 bird And then if you want, you can come back the next day, the next week, the next month, as long as you're within the season, and try to get your second bird. Where does that differ on private land? On private land, you're allowed to kill 2 birds on the same day, in the same sit, in the same hunt. So there's a little bit of variances there. You guys just have to be sure that you understand the difference and understand whether you're hunting public, whether you're hunting private, and what resource you need to go to in order to know what the laws are in the place that you plan to be hunting. So guys, to finalize this video, I know we talked about a lot. Hopefully you guys can use this video as a resource. Please do not take what I am telling you in this video as your rule. Do not pull this video up to a game warden and say, hey, David Cardoso from Native Outdoors, who's a hunting expert, because I'm not, I'm nowhere near a hunting expert, made this video explaining how to hunt in Florida. Do not show that to a game warden. Do not use it to excuse yourself. Oh, I saw it in a video. This is what I thought I could do. Please do your own research. Do your own fact finding. Go look up these WMA brochures, look up these DMUs, these hunting zones in the state of Florida, and make sure that you know for certain what you're doing and where you're doing it and what time you're doing it, because that is what's going to make sure that you are always legal and doing things correctly hunting in the state of Florida. Guys, I can't stress enough, hunting and fishing is a right that we get in the state of Florida, but it's also a privilege, and it's a privilege that can definitely be tweaked or taken away in parts if we don't do our job and our best at constantly trying to uphold the law and do things in the correct manner in order to preserve the resource and in order to allow more opportunities for generations to come to do the thing that we also love to do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it brought value to you, and I hope that you can use it to better yourself and to get out there, because the purpose of my channel at the end of the day is not just to entertain, but also to inform, because I had nobody when I first started to teach me all of this stuff, and I had to learn it myself. Guys, I did not grow up, my dad wasn't a hunter, I didn't have an uncle who was a hunter. I 100% had to learn this stuff by myself. I have made really good friends in this community. I have made friends with officials and people who have instructed me and shown me, given me these tools so that I can also do better and learn myself. And I'm hoping that through my channel, I can just bring you guys a little bit of the knowledge that I have gained throughout the time that I've been doing it. But that's all we have for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a subscribe, follow along for more, because we're going to be doing some great hunts coming up, so you don't want to miss out on that. But if you did enjoy this video, make sure you give it a like, make sure you give it a subscribe, share it with your friends, and as always, be good, God bless. We'll see you on the next one.